Hi, Mesa class. I'm Dr. Nicole Traeger. Hopefully, you haven't forgotten that I teaching class too. This week, we're going to work on some personal statement examples. I have 4 examples for you, and what you're going to do is you're going to be admissions officers. So you're going to read through examples and you're going to score them based on their GPA and based on how you feel about their essays. And you're going to give them a score between 1 through 5 and see if you are going to admit them to your college campus. And this is going to show us how different we as not we, but how admissions officers might view your essays. But frankly, I learned how to write essays better by being an admissions officer. So I think it's a really great exercise for you to read some examples and look at them critically and try to be an admissions officer and see who you would admit and why before you start writing your own essays. Uh, so, there are some things I want you to pay attention to when reading through some essays. First is about the audience. Who are who are these people writing to? Who's the audience? You want to make sure you know your audience. So most of the admissions officers at the UCs or at private schools are not in the department you're applying to. Most of them are used to be history majors or counselors or something like that, and they are strictly their full-time job is reading admissions essays. So you want to make sure that the language and the descriptions you use are not so scientific that you're going over the heads of people that have a counseling background or a communications background. Um, yeah, you're applying to a NASA scholarship, and then they would be very scientific that they're reading, and so you might want to add a little bit more sciencey background, a little less general language in there. The second thing I think you want to notice in some of these essays is really the theme of overcoming. A lot of the people in these essays have struggles that they've overcome and shown how they've overcome them. So that's a lot of what admissions people want to see, that you have had something in your life that you have grown from, and you do explain it and you show that tenacity that you can stick through something that's difficult. So pay attention to that. Third, you want to make sure that your personal statements are personal. I think a lot of people in their personal statements get locked into, oh, it asked me to describe my major and why I'm this major. And it becomes this biology statement, how much I love biology because it's so green and beautiful and the earth is so wonderful. And now you're just telling me all about biology and less about yourself in 300 words. And you want to make sure that everything comes back to you and that it's a personal statement, not a biology statement. 4, you want to make sure that you're looking for specifics, that you're specific in your essay. The more specific you are, the better. So if I tell you that I am a great leader, do you believe me? Or if I tell you that I'm really good at leadership because I have um, formed a community college task force at the national level that hadn't been formed before, and then we were able to gain funding so that we could run a national conference. And in the first year, we had 50 funders, and then all the way to the 6th year, now we have 100 funders, and we were able to have over 600 students there. And, it's been a really great leadership experience. Now that I've told you specifics about the leadership types of things that I do you believe me a little bit more about that I am a great leader? And then format. You want to make sure that your essays are formatted. They don't need to be in this MLA or HLA format, but they do need to be in some sort of format. You need to have a beginning, a middle, an end. We need to be able to see that there's an intro, that there's a middle paragraph, that there's a conclusion, that there's a strong conclusion, that it walks us through a full, complete story. And that's what makes a really good essay in the end. So pay attention to that as you're reading these essays. Number six is jargon or abbreviations. And this kind of going back to knowing your audience. Make sure that there's not too much jargon or abbreviations that your audience isn't going to know what's going on. So, for example, if I'm applying to UC Irvine and I keep talking about my Chem 25 class and my Bio 20 class, they might not know what that means because their class numbers aren't, named that. So I might want to talk more about my general chemistry class and my cell biology class. So you want to make sure that you're being specific and you don't use too many unexplained things. Maybe I want to talk about MESA, and the first time I talk about it, I don't use the abbreviation MESA. I spell out math, engineering, science, achievement. So watch out for those jargon and that abbreviations. 7 is a general tip that you might not be able to see throughout these essays, but you want to make sure to write double or triple, and then it's easier for you to cut it down. So it's easier to cut down your essay than it is to write more. And you might be able to see that in some of these essays, they're a little bit longer than you might write. And you could probably see where you might take a little bit out to make it fit in the word count that you might have. And finally, number 8 is edit, edit, edit. Make sure that your essays are edited. When you're reading through an essay, you can kind of tell that somebody spent some time editing it, that they got somebody else to read it, that, really good editing, self-editing thing is to read it out loud. You can kind of hear where the language trips up a little bit. And that's really great so that you're delivering something that people can read a little bit smoother. So when you're reading this essays, make sure you're kind of looking at, how long did they spend on these essays? Is it, I'm spending my time reading them. Did they spend their time trying to submit these essays in a timely and edited manner? Okay, so remember for this assignment, you are reading through 4 essays and you're going to give them scores 1 through 5. And then you're going to write some comments based on the writing tips that I gave you. And then you're going to use these writing tips in your writing as you start writing your essays. So I hope that this exercise is helpful for you. Please let myself or Melissa know if you have questions or want any clarifications of anything. And have fun being admissions officers. I can't wait to hear who gets into your college and who doesn't. Take care.